Food and weight obsession can be exhausting. Losing weight, gaining weight, dieting, feeling like a failure because you missed a workout, binged, overate, or gained all the weight back. The cycle is endless and it can be maddening. But I'm here to say you can stop the mental madness. You can take back control of your food behaviors, but you have to face your fears, you have to ask for help, and make a change. I am Leslie M. Thornton, permanent weight loss coach from hpwl.co. This is Hypnosis for Permanent Weight Loss, and I know you can make this happen. On this podcast, you will hear how to stop the mental madness, love your body, trust your food decisions so you can create a life of happiness, freedom, and inner peace. Hello, Leslie M. Thornton, Hypnosis for Permanent Weight Loss. Today we have Chris Bowers with us here. Chris is a stand-up comedian who is a stand for just people living their best lives and empowering them to know that anything is possible, which is totally in alignment with what we stand for here at Hypnosis for Permanent Weight Loss. I actually met Chris from afar at one of his stand-up comedy events just a couple weeks ago in Albany, New York. He made me laugh. I appreciate being made to laugh. And then also made my birthday very fun when we happenstancely met out later and paraded all the comics to a local karaoke spot. And in that, having conversations with Chris just around his weight loss journey and the difference he's made, especially for young kids, school age, just around the topic of anxiety, and thought he would be the perfect guest to come on, and he gracefully accepted. So Chris, thanks so much for being here and being willing to share your story.
Well, I'm excited to be here, man. It was nice meeting you. And I liked Albany. It was a small enough town that I kept getting recognized. You know what I mean? So like I did one show on Friday and then I got recognized like 4 different times. Like people that recognize, and I always dress crazy. I mean, I dress in tuxedo jackets and I'm kind of flashy. So, but there were people that were at the show on Friday. They're like, yeah, we saw you at Panera today or whatever. I'm like, oh, really? So it was kind of interesting. I kept meeting people that had seen me other places in Albany. So that was fun.
It is small enough that people can. And yes, you stand out, which is how I was able to spot you. But it's that kind of place. It's always interesting every time stand-up comics come to Albany because we're like waiting. I'm always waiting to hear what jokes they have to say. Are you familiar with Joe Coy? The comic?
Yeah, I know Joe Coy. I mean, I don't know him
he
personally.
He came to Albany not that long ago, and he really nailed it as far as making me laugh about Albany. He was just like, do you people know that there's other places you can go?
Yeah.
He's like, you don't need to stay here.
Whenever I see a beautiful person in like Muncie, Indiana, I'm like, you're allowed to move, right? Why would you stay in Muncie, Indiana if you're pretty? I don't know.
Totally. When I was on my cross country trip years ago and I saw like population like 20, it's just like, wow, how do these people get here? I always was so fascinated, and it turned out I was like on the route for some industrial thing, hundreds of years ago.
I drove through West Virginia once in this windy ass mountain road, and it was like the scariest thing I've ever done. And I'm like, I think the people that live here are just like, I'm not driving anymore. I'm done. I'm just gonna live here. I'm not. This is so. I don't want to do this anymore. This drive is so terrible. I'm just gonna stop my car and buy a house.
Yeah, I think that's what must have happened. Just like random things like that. But anyway, Albany, I guess, can be looked at as a stop through point, but just happens to be where I still am. So
I liked Albany. Again, it's not, Albany's big enough. Like there's a point where things are too big. It's big. I liked it. I like the size of Albany, to be honest.
I love that. Yeah. And you're from
Indianapolis originally. Well, I'm from Richmond, Indiana originally, but I went to Ball State University and I lived in Indy for like 20 years I moved to LA in November of 18.
Mm-hmm. And how big is Indianapolis?
2 million. It's like the 12th biggest city in the country.
Okay. So you're still a small town boy despite growing up in not such a small city.
Yeah, well, I grew up in Richmond, was 40,000 people, so
okay, got it.
I grew up till college.
Okay, got it.
I was from Enon, Ohio before that, which talk about one of those little towns where why would anybody live there? Backwards spells none. There were about 1,200 people in that little tiny town. And that's where I started till we moved to Richmond, the big city of Richmond, when I was in 4th grade. So
I love that. Well, I never complain about the fact that I can drive anywhere at any time in Albany and find parking and still get the job done, regardless of what activities being had. So benefits to it.
I joke in LA, everywhere is 40 minutes away. No matter where
everywhere.
you're going, whether you're going, it doesn't, if I'm going to the comedy store, it's 40 minutes. If I'm going, I mean, it just takes 40 minutes to get anywhere in this town. And
Yep.
once you realize that, you're not so angry about it anymore.
Correct. You just expectations need to be met and everybody's good. I hear
I also
you.
think it's funny that the smaller a place, the less people want to drive, which is funny. Like I spoke at a high school in Tennessee once. It was a freshman orientation. It was like 5 hours long. And this mom drops her kid off at like 7 a.m. and she wants to come in. And I'm like, well, it's just for the students. Sorry, the parents. And she's like, well, what am I supposed to do now? And I'm like, I don't know, drive home. She's like, it is 7 miles. I'm not driving all the way home. And she sat in the parking lot and for 5 hours and waited for her kid rather than drive 7 miles back. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Wow, that's
Like,
hilarious.
I have to drive 7 miles to go to a grocery store, in Indianapolis,
Exactly. Wow, 7 miles. Yeah, it's all perspective. I know once I, started traveling internationally and everything else, it was like road trip seemed like nothing, it's just like, oh,
Right.
it's a 5-hour drive easy, or one cross country trip and it's totally different thing. So
yeah, well, that's talking about all the things we're going to talk about. Like that's part of is putting your brain in the right, once you've done something once, it's not hard anymore. And, there's things like that. Like, so there's a conference I used to speak at, we were just talking about pre-show about the Indianapolis 500. There's a thing on Friday called Carburation Day, which is a big, huge party. And so I used to speak at this conference Thursday night in Maryland. It was 9 hours away, but there was no way to get there by plane and get back by 7 a.m. to get to the track. It just wasn't possible. So I would drive 9 hours, speak from 9 to 10 p.m. and then drive 9 hours back, get in at 7 a.m. and just go right to the track, no sleep, whatever. And once you do that 18-hour drive with an hour in the middle to talk 3 or 4 years in a row, then like I can drive 6 hours, no problem. I can drive. I mean, like I flew into Buffalo to drive to Albany because the ticket was way cheaper, so
100%. Yeah. Kyle Cease, you're familiar with him?
Kyle,
Connected with him. I think we might have talked about him the other day. I can't remember. But he was just saying recently about how when he was just coming up as a comic, would go like night after night to different college, different college, different college, different college. And just like how it was like boot camp for his stand-up comedy and just being willing to, put on all those miles just to get the job done. So you just got to have the dedication and commitment.
Yeah, I've toured Montana, and if you haven't been to Montana, that is the biggest place. I mean, it's like 18 hours corner to corner. It's crazy. See, like flying to Billings, and then I, speak 2 hours and drive 2 hours and drive 2 hours, and then I'd be 8 hours away from Billings by the time I was done, and drive all the way back to spend the night at a hotel, and then go the other direction, like kind of a wagon wheel. So yeah, but I like driving. Driving's fun for me.
Yeah, nice. I like it. Stream of consciousness. So when we actually met up, because of your flashy, amazing coat, for anyone who can see the video of this, which that was like how you opened up your stand-up, where you were like, people can always recognize me. And then my friends were sitting down and I was like, oh, and then I was like, oh, that's not him, because it was not the same coat the second night.
Right.
Told him the whole story. And then I looked again and I was like, oh my God, it is. So
it is him.
Really told the story. So your coat works. But yes, what we got talking about after that point was around what I do for work, hypnosis for permanent weight loss. And then you shared with me how you lost 100 pounds. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm down
During
100
COVID?
pounds since my top weight was like 280 like 5 years ago, and then during the pandemic I crept back up to about 260, and then I'm 180 now. So it took
that. Congratulations.
It was a 2-year journey. Like because I originally when I was 280, I had a buddy, was a punter for the Colts named Pat McAfee. He's a huge media star now, but he wanted to do stand-up comedy. So he hung out. I used to own a comedy club, and he hung out at my club for a while, and we went on a trip to Myrtle Beach, a comedy trip. It was crazy. It was a $1,300 gig between all three spots, between me, my buddy Todd, my buddy Sean. We were doing the three, and Pat said, well, I want to go. And I was like, all right, cool. We thought we'd just drive down there. No, he rented us a private jet. Like we spent 10 grand to get to a $1,300 gig. It was insane. But on that trip, I was just like wheezy and big, and it was hot and sweaty and whatever. And he was like, man, I'll give you $1,000 if you can lose 70 pounds by the end of football season. And it was like right at the beginning of football season. So I was like, all right. And I did it. I lost 7, but I just starved myself. It was all no carb. And, by the last, I couldn't get past I had to get to 210, and I couldn't get past like 218 for like months. I just hit a plateau. And I said to my girlfriend at the time, I said, I am going to, like, it was Monday and the Pro Bowl was on Sunday. So it was my last week. And I said, I'm going to not eat until I'm 210 or dead. That was my goal. And I didn't eat Monday. I didn't eat Tuesday. I didn't eat Wednesday. I didn't eat Thursday. And Friday morning, I was 210. And I tell people all the time, if you want to know what it's like to be a heroin addict for real, just don't eat for 4 days.
Oh my God.
Because your brain is just, you're like, all right, we got to do something on TV. Okay, let's go on a walk. Walking sucks. Okay, let's watch TV. Everything sucks on TV. Okay, because all your brain is thinking about is food. And I'm sure that's how heroin addicts feel about heroin. You know what I mean? And so like that it really kind of made me understand like, oh shit, because it was just everything in my brain. And then, I crept up but then, because I was starving myself, the minute we went to Fogo de Chao for my victory dinner, and I think I gained 17 pounds at lunch. Like I was 227, exactly. Like the next after, because I'd been starving myself, and like your body doesn't like that. So this time I did it with exercise, which was the first time. I mean, there was still some calorie restriction, but I found when I exercised, then when I did eat bad or whatever, then I didn't gain 9 pounds, and that throws your brain into like, and you give up, and it kills all your motivation. Or you're like, well, I'll start over on Monday and then eat bad for 5 days in a row instead of 2 or whatever. Now, when I exercise, I can eat bad one day and I'll gain a pound, and I won't stress about it. I can just start again the next day,
Totally. So. And for everyone listening, I didn't invite Chris to promote starvation and
right. No,
and I know that you're not promoting that either.
Yeah.
But what I did learn, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, finish your thought.
What I did learn from talking with you is you had some really interesting perspectives on ways of talking about like the mindset of how the human brain works and survival, which, it sounds like your body probably went into like a scarcity, like you're saying, the heroin addict, like right. Give me the food now kind of situation. Yeah. And then food being attached with like danger. So do you mind sharing that? I thought that was amazing.
Well, what I think part of our anxiety right now, what I talk to students about is there's 2 kinds of anxiety. There's helpful anxiety, which you need. That's the anxiety that keeps you from being naked or getting hit by cars or eaten by bears back in the day. Like every day I leave my house, my anxiety says, hey, do you have your keys? And sometimes I don't. And I go, oh, thanks, anxiety. And I go get my keys. So you need some anxiety. It's not like, it isn't like gambling or drugs. You can't just abstain from it. It's like literally food. You need some of it every day or you'll die. It's just, you don't need the wrong kind too much or at the wrong time. And so the first step to anxiety is, okay, is this to help me? Is this to try to motivate me to do something better, or is there danger? The analogy I make is there a bear in your room, right? Like if I had a friend who was like, she was in a terrible living situation, it was just awful, and she's like, yeah, I can't sleep at night. And I'm like, well, okay, you probably have some anxiety, but there's also a bear in your room about to eat you. That's why you can't sleep. So the first step of anxiety is if there is a bear in your room, build a cage. And you build a cage by making a plan and figuring out the next steps. And okay, well, instead of vapor locking and just going, you have to figure out what you're supposed to do. And then it doesn't get rid of the anxiety, but it does make it less. The better the cage, the more you work the plan. The second kind of anxiety, which is I think what you're referencing, is we have what I call historical anxiety, where like our brains are built to find danger, because for millennia, there was actual danger around almost every corner. You were going to get literally eaten by a bear, or you had to like cross a river, not get bitten by a snake. I mean, it was just, if you look at even pioneer times, it wasn't that long ago, how much danger there's in the world. So our brain is designed to find that danger. And without actual danger, it will create danger. Kind of like, your dog was on some level bred to be a guard dog. And now there's no real danger. So it barks at the mailman, even though he's not a threat. That's what your brain's doing a lot. And so that's the first directive, is find the danger. Right. And so and also media. I mean, the media has spent 50 years preying on that we know that they know our brain's looking for danger. So how many times do you hear 5 things under your sink that'll kill you and your whole family at 11? Tune in. They've used that danger to make us watch television and the news especially. And then you figure in social media, which, for 20 years has specifically designed to make us scared or angry to click on stuff. And we end up with a group of people right now that live in the best time to ever be alive and think it's the worst time to ever be alive, which is a crazy paradox to me. Like, this is the best we've ever been. I mean, we need to get better, and we will, but like, if you had a time machine, you're not going to 1923. That place was awful. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to 1533. I mean, you're coming right now. It's the best we've ever been. But the second thing that your brain does is it's to find the food, because again, for millennia until very recently, and still in the world and places in this country, people do struggle with finding food every day, and people used to starve to death all the time.
Yep.
You know, and now food is everywhere. And it's not the old food that our ancestors were eating, where they were picking berries off trees, or they used to have like a stew pot that they would have cook for 10 years and they would just throw whatever now we have this genetically engineered food in a lab that's like so
anything.
Yeah, it's so delicious. They discovered America looking for spices to cover up the taste of rancid meat. That's what they were doing, right? They needed
to protect themselves from whatever bacteria was going to kill them inside the rancid meat.
Right, exactly. So now that's our second, find the food. Well, now it's everywhere, and it's this perfect, amazing food. And where our brains just scream, it's like, oh, I found it. Look, eat the food. Oh my God, the food is everywhere, right? Because your brain doesn't know that it will find this tomorrow, because for millennia it didn't, right? And so now you can have two choices. You can either eat the food without abandon and keep your brain happy that way. But if you want to be in shape, or you want to eat healthier, or you want to, whatever we're talking about, lose weight, now the food becomes the danger. The thing you're looking for second is now the thing that you're looking for. So that's why we have so much anxiety and stress, because now the thing we're supposed to find is everywhere, and now we're afraid of it. Because like, I can't go in there. They got donuts in there. I can't walk in that store. I'll see a donut.
Totally. And what we were talking about was around, with my NLP background, like the definitions or the words we attach to different foods. So with the weight loss industry being like sugar is bad, and every diet you followed, and all the reason, gluten and dairy and inflammatory foods, blah, blah, like we place the meaning on those foods and associate sugar with bad and alcohol with bad. Right. And then all of a sudden that's how it becomes the danger.
Right.
And so then it's like, yeah, there's no differentiation. And then that's the vicious cycle that all of our clients get into, is like, they're stuck between a rock and a hard place, because they do feel the danger. They feel the anxiety. The way that they know how to get past the anxiety and the danger is through the food or the alcohol. Right. But that is the danger. So then they're like, it's just multiple alarms going off, and people are just trapped and trapped and trapped. And so in like the work that we do is like, the only way to get out of that vicious cycle is to go through, like, feel the anxiety, like you're saying, like identify the bear, build a cage, whatever you need to do to like get that sense of safety in your body. Also to stop making food bad and wrong. Like, despite what every diet has told you and every doctor and every professional has said, like, take off the labels of this food is going to cause me cancer tomorrow. Right. Like, I used to be so obsessed. I am a self-diagnosed orthorexic. So just like mentally knew how every food was interacting with my body. I was never super overweight, but I always said I had the mind of a fat kid. And I could just like, I was just obsessed with it. And it wasn't until I took those labels off and like faced my fears, because I would be like, oh, as soon as I eat, something with dairy, I blow up. Like, I could show you the evidence. I could show you how much weight I would gain. I would show you all the evidence I was a food addict, but then I had to have hard coaching that was like, Leslie, if you eat something with gluten, because I was like, no, my bowel movements get off. Like, I have an intolerance. Right. And they'd be like, if you ate gluten right now, would you die? I was like, no, and they were like, so therefore you technically can have gluten. And that was like the hardest thing for me as like a health person to but it was like my commitment to get past the vicious cycle and to have food, body, and weight be something that my brain was completely stuck to think about pretty much 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I had to face the fear and realize that like, hey, actually candy doesn't make me die.
Right. Well, and that's one of the things too, like, because I've gained and I've lost and gained 60 pounds 6 times in my life. Like, that was part of my anxiety. And I just figured this out recently. I had a bunch of anxiety at the beginning of the year. It was because I was terrified. I'd hit this goal, 100 pounds, 2 years. I got into, this exercise goal. And a lot of times when I would hit a goal, then I would just coast and gain all the weight back or whatever, because and so I was terrified of doing that. And so, but when I used to diet, when I would do no carb was my big one. Just not eating carbs is the way my body would lose weight pretty quickly. But you would get sick of it. There was just a point where the reason all those fad diets work is because you can only eat so much bacon before you're like, I can't put another piece of bacon in my mouth or I'm going to throw up. Right. And so you eat less calories. That's why the diet stopped working once the the industry figures out, oh, these are gluten-free cupcakes. Well, now gluten-free doesn't help you anymore, because the only reason that gluten-free made you lose weight is because there's only 9 things you can fucking eat, and you can't eat them anymore. So you just don't eat that day. Right.
That's
and
right.
so this time with exercise and very just what I did. So to give you a sense of it. So I got COVID like the end of October, like 2020. And it was before the vaccine, and it was scary. Like it was killing old fat people, and I was 48 years old and 280. And, the third day I was like, this, and I'd also painted myself into a Facebook corner where I've been arguing with hillbillies on Facebook for months about, if you're going to break the rules and go outside and get COVID, that's fine. Just die at home and don't go to the hospital and get a nurse sick. And so I was going to die at my house because I'd broken the rules. I went to a football party and I got COVID. And so I was like, well, that was my fault. So I made this big stand. So I was going to die in my house. So I was a little worried about it. So then I got over it, but I was like, we've always had that. I think everybody's had a time where like something happened. Like, okay, if this gets through, then I'll never again, I made this promise to myself that I was going to figure it out. And so we had a New Year's party that year. And my buddy Casey, said, I'm going to support your comedy for 100 days in a row. My buddy Steve said, only 100 days in a row. And Casey said, you do anything for 100 days in a row will change your life. And that sounded cool. So on January 1st, I did 1 push-up and 1 sit-up. And then on January 2nd, I did 2. And I just added 1 a day for 100 days in a row. And I quit drinking any sort of flavored drink other than water. There was a bunch of things I did, like 4 of them I got through, but the push-ups and sit-ups I did 100 days in a row. And then I did 5 days a week. And by 2 years later, I was doing 400 push-ups and 400 sit-ups, every day. And because if you can do 2, you can do 3. I mean, so that's part of, just like we're talking about driving. Once you drive 5 hours, you can, it's not a big deal. Mm-hmm. And so, but this time with exercise, I didn't do the food restriction. Like I just ate when I was hungry. And there were weeks where I would go, okay, I'm going to calorie restrict and I'm going to like be real good. But still, I wasn't doing no carb. I did it mostly on Wendy's, if I'm being honest. I would eat 3 double stacks from Wendy's every day, but they were delicious. They're my favorite food. Double stacks from Wendy's are great. Yeah. And so it wasn't like I didn't dread the meal. I was excited about the meal. And then I would only eat like once a day, but I was eating, 1,500 calories, 2,000 calories, but it was just once a day because intermittent fasting, I think, does work. At least works for me. So, but I didn't focus as much on the food. I wasn't worried about, oh, if I didn't take the buns off, like I would just, because I would eat double stacks with no buns all the time, but I just ate what I wanted. And it wasn't, I didn't put myself, to your point, in that prison of, oh, if I mess up, I'm a bad person and I'm terrible and whatever, and even with the exercise, like the first 137 days, I was hardcore. I didn't miss one. I knew I had to form that habit. Then I fell off a bike and hurt my shoulder. And I was a little nervous that like, oh, I'm not going to get back. But then once I was healed, I went right back and I did 138 that next, but it was like a month later. And then I realized, okay, if there's a day I'm traveling, I don't have to exercise every day as long as I'm doing it most of the days when I can. So that helped me take myself out of that prison. So,
I love that. Yeah.
And another thing, when you were talking, another thing I learned during the pandemic that I think is interesting is, I was with my girlfriend at the time. We'd spent the whole pandemic together, just the first 6 months, just the 2 of us, because we lived in California. I don't know if you guys did it serious in Albany, but like in California, I just went to the store like once every 2 weeks. That was the only people we saw. And so I was making a point. This wasn't I was just on the way to a point where I said, when you text somebody and you're not sure of their relationship to you, and so you're not sure if they're going to text you back. So you're kind of nervous about it. And then you get anxious and then time kind of stands still and you keep looking at your phone every 3 minutes to see if they're going to text you. And she said, no. I was like, what do you mean? I didn't know that was an option. I go, what do you mean no? And she goes, it never occurred to me that someone wouldn't text me back.
Interesting.
And I almost fell down. And I realized in that moment, like we cause what we fear. Like literally, I don't mean like the secret kind of way. I mean, like if you're afraid people are going to find you annoying, you mitigate and say things that make you annoying, like not to be annoying, or, hey, not to be creepy. Once you say creepy, you're fucking creepy. Stop doing that. Right. Like I agree. I was at a comedy show and this other comic came out and I went to the bathroom, came out of the bathroom, and this kid, I don't know him, he comes and he goes, hey, sorry, man. I go, what? He goes, oh, I farted in the bathroom. I thought you heard me and I wanted to apologize in case you heard it. I'm like, so you're afraid I heard you fart? So you came and told me you farted? Like, I didn't know you farted till you told me. Now it's embarrassing. You know what I mean? Like we literally cause what we fear. Like, so there's that, you know,
Yes, absolutely.
you
I
know,
see it happen all the time. It's just how consciousness works,
yeah.
Like,
So,
yes, we absolutely cause
so
what
if
we
there's
fear. Okay,
something,
so with the texting,
yeah, so all that stuff. So it's just like, so because what happens is then you'll be like,
yes,
okay, don't worry about texting me back if you don't want to. And you send the second text and then they don't text you back. You literally cause them not to text you back by being weird and sending a second strange text about whether they, you know what I mean? So it's just, so I've tried to work on that as well. Like, if something's going wrong, okay, am I causing this somehow subconsciously? Am I putting myself, am I saying the things? Am I sabotaging myself? You know, which self-sabotage is a huge thing for people, you know.
100%. I actually learned this through Kyle C sharing his awareness of his fear of being hated. And I really resonated with that. I never like saw it in that exact, terminology, but I was like, oh, I have a fear of being hated. Right. And so like all through life, you're just like looking for, and as soon as like you get any kind of external, sign that I am hated, that's like all your survival stuff goes off. You also, I tell my clients all the time, you do the complete opposite of what your fear is all the time. So whatever you're putting, well, this is a little different, but whatever you're putting out the most, if you're like the most loving person in the world, then it means that you need to learn how to love yourself. Like whatever you're putting out is what you need the most. So whatever people say about you is like, that's what I'm missing, because you're constantly putting it out. But with the, with the hated one, it's like you're doing everything to make sure nobody hates you. Everything, your whole life, right? So I like learned how to master communication, right? I'm an NLP trainer, whatever, like everything's about communication. And it's because I was afraid if I said anything wrong, someone could hate me. And that was my body, my unconscious mind, primal, biggest fear of like, oh, well, my life is over if anyone hates me. Building a business is not the best place to hide from any of that happening, but it's also the fastest way of personal development. So, I've learned in the journey of like getting that and, kind of letting that fear go. And
that resonates with me a lot, because part of, comedy is, the comics that make it the most, the people that love them the most also have the most haters, because if you don't have people that hate, like if you're not emotionally charging enough to make people love you, then you're not you're in the middle. You're kind of, so I'm for everybody. No one hates me, but also no one loves me. Like I don't have people chasing me down. So yeah, it's a solid point. I'll have to think about that.
We can like consciously know that, like, okay, I know that there's going to be haters, but your body's, biggest reaction is if you see the haters, then it's like anxiety. I mean, so many celebrities and people in the public eye, I would argue that like that it's some flavor of not wanting to be hated that drives them. But yeah, they see it all around them anyway. But then certain people keep pushing through because the mission is greater than the pain, and the pain is only making us stronger and learn more about ourselves, and
for sure,
we need to be.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So love it. Hey, just in case you missed it, the Hypnosis for Permanent Weight Loss book is hot and ready for you on Kindle. That's right. We've outlined our entire program in one simple read. If you haven't done so already, go over to hpwl.info/ebook and download your copy now. You'll get the exact tools we teach in our Fast Track to Freedom program, plus a full set of food freedom resources you can start exploring today. Again, all you need to do is go to hpwl.info/ebook. Now back to a regular podcast. And then you're also talking to me about what you realized about putting some of those great habits off till the end of the day.
Yeah. So the other thing too that happened during this journey is what I found, because sometimes I did the push-ups and sit-ups first thing in the morning. Sometimes I did them in the afternoon. Sometimes I did them 2:30 in the morning, getting home from a gig, blackout drunk, to be honest. And like, I realized that the later I did them, the harder they were, because every time I thought about doing them and didn't, anxiety said, you're not going to do it today, are you? You're going to mess up. Today's the day you're going to miss. You're not going to do this at all. And so that anxiety was literally pushing on my back as I was doing push-ups at 2:30 in the morning, and so day 40, I'm like, I'm just going to do them first thing in the morning. Every time when I wake up, I'm going to do, first thing I do is I'm going to do my push-ups and sit-ups. And a thing happened I didn't expect, because I thought once I did them, I wouldn't think about it anymore. But that's not how your brain works. Like, my anxiety searches for my keys, even though I know I have my keys in my pocket. Like, you still think that, so I would think 6 or 8 times a day you need to do your push-ups. And when I hadn't done them yet, that was 6 or 8 times I call it a shame spiral, where I'd feel bad about myself and they would get harder. But then when I did them first thing, I still thought 6 or 8 times I have to do I have to do my push-ups. And then I'd think to myself, no, we already did them. And I would get a victory. And so I would have a pride spiral 6 or 8 times a day. So I just started doing that with everything. Like I used to have, clothes all over my room. No, when I get done, we get done here today, we're going to walk and get lunch. So I'll take this coat off. I'll hang it up. I'll hang up my shirt. You know what I mean? Like I'm not going to like just leave it on the ground. I'll get it tomorrow, or, oh, I might wear this jacket later today, so I'll leave it on the bed. No, just hang it up. It takes 2 seconds. And then, so my kitchen's clean and my room's clean, all these different things. So now, if there's 5 things, I'm 30 to 40 times a day, I'm feeling good about myself instead of bad about myself, because I do it first thing. So the minute it just is done, like I saw, today I was in the shower, I knocked some shampoo it fell into the bathtub. Mm-hmm. So normally I would have just left it there till the next time I got in the shower, but I was like, no, I'll just bend over and pick it up right now. And so just dumb stuff like that. The minute you think of it, just do it. It's amazing how much that helps your mental health and your anxiety levels. And I didn't realize how much procrastination wasn't laziness. I thought I was just lazy. It was anxiety. It was, oh, but what if I do it and I don't succeed? What if I try this and it doesn't work? What if I, whatever. And so putting it off in my head made me think, oh, I won't worry about it then. I was like, no, you're still worrying about it, man. You're still worrying about it a bunch. So just do it. And that's the thing with exercise. Like I'm going to do 400 push-ups a day. That seems like a lot. Mm-hmm. You can get it done. I mean, so like what, in worst case, you don't. So who cares? If I only can do 395, then my arms fall off. All right. Then I know. But so yeah, that has really helped my mental health a lot. Stop procrastinating. That's what I really am trying to stress with students. And I tell kids, like, this isn't for your mom to stop bothering you. This isn't for your teachers, for you. Do your homework for you before you go play video games, because then you'll have more fun playing video games. You still do both. It's just order. It's just the order that matters.
I love that so much. I was the kid who did her homework on Friday afternoon so that I didn't have to worry about it at all over the weekend.
Wow. See, I was the guy that one time in college, we had to write a paper on, we had to pick a senator. I had a legislation. I was a poli-sci major. So we had to pick a senator. It was for the semester. We got assigned the first day. So this was like 3/4 of the way through it was due. So it was like due in 3 months. You had to pick a senator and then just tell us what their legislative agenda was and why they think that way and whatever. So I picked Ted Kennedy, and you weren't allowed to change once you'd pick. So I picked Ted Kennedy. Well, by the time I really went to the library the night before it was due, back when you had to go to the library, this was before the internet. I'm old. And all the books, somebody else had picked him too. So all the books were checked out. All the magazines were gone. All the microfiche weren't there. Like, I don't know, but they used to like take pictures of newspaper articles and put them on what they called microfiche, were little slide project, and you would go and put it in and read it from there. That was all gone. So my entire paper was just based on the titles of the articles that were checked out that I couldn't use. So it was like, Ted Kennedy fights for the poor. I'm like, Ted Kennedy fights for the poor. Like, I didn't have any of the articles to read. I just had the titles of said articles. I had a badass bibliography with like 19 sources, but I didn't have any of the sources. That's who I am. So I just wrote this crazy paper that just like made it all up. Still got a B- somehow. I don't know what happened.
Wow, nice job.
But that was me. I was always the last second we could do it. That's when I was going to do it.
I hear you. And I think it's a good testament of just like the acknowledgement of different brains call for different ways for transformation. And that's why, like, when I, coach my clients, I'll sometimes be very specific and I'll be like, this is the coaching I'm giving to this person because her brain is normally wired like this. Don't listen to this because your brain may not be. It's like, it's always the opposite of what you're wired to be like. That's going to give you the biggest breakthrough. So for me, obviously, like, I was more wired like perfectionistic, and like I, had a tendency to fall into programs that were like, I, followed this food addiction program for 3 years, and you weighed and measured every single thing you ate. You never even went 1/10 of an ounce over the amounts, like no sugar, no flour, no snacking, no alcohol for 3 years. Yeah, I like stripped every piece of joy out of my life, right? But just the fact that I was able to do that and like got such a high from that perfectionism, like it took me having to like be okay with leaving the clothes on the damn bed once in a while. And right, like that was the bigger transformation. But then, like everything, the ideal is, pendulum kind of can be in the middle, and you can like, But for you, and for anyone else who's listening, it's like, if it's the, getting yourself to actually follow through on anything, then yeah, try it out, or you do it first thing in the morning and start a,
Yeah,
pride
I
spiral.
said the hardest part about running is putting on your shoes for me. But I just remembered another thing I used to do
So
in college
true.
is if I had like I again would not study till the night before the test if I was going to study, and I would have to read a whole book in a night. And so what I would do is I'd read till I got tired, and then I'd just set my alarm for 7 minutes ahead. And then I would fall asleep. I would read for 4 minutes, fall asleep for 3. My alarm would go off. I'd hit snooze, read for 4 minutes, fall asleep. I would do that for like 12 hours. My roommates are like, what the hell are you doing? Why is your snooze alarm
Wow.
going off every 7 minutes for 12 hours? I'm like, oh, I'm reading a book. But
I've never heard anybody do that, but I could see how that would be helpful, because if you're
I,
not doing that, for me, my brain will just zone out for those 4 minutes anyway, and I had to go back and read them again. So it's probably a good tactic.
I don't know if it worked. I mean, I went to Ball State, so I was kind of the curve. Like I took the SAT. I went to a college that took 400 points less than what I got because I didn't have to study very hard. So that's kind of my
Oh my
plan.
God. There was a study that I saw BBC do about men, and like the way men make it is just like, how much of the bare minimum can I do and still get by?
Right.
Like that's their strategy for surviving in life. And then women, their thing is like, I have to prove and work hard, and show that I can make it, because they're not programmed to like believe in themselves. So then it translates over into the workplace, where it's like, that's where, women are like, it's not fair. Men can like whatever, but it's like they're wired to just be like, well, bare minimum to make it. And then the woman is burning herself out or whatever. But
Well, and this is a joke. I haven't had the balls to say on stage yet, but the idea of like, to your point, I hear women all the time say, "Oh, when a guy's an asshole, he's rewarded in business, and when a woman is stern and like then she's called a bitch or whatever." And it's like, yeah, but the difference between the two people is the asshole doesn't care that you think he's an asshole.
love it.
Doesn't give a shit at all. And so
Mhm.
that's why he gets ahead, because he's a fucking psychopath, right? So like the joke is that like really, if you care what people think about you, man or woman, you a bitch, right? The reason less
Mhm.
women are CEOs is because less women are fucking psychopaths. They're nice, genuine people who don't want to destroy everyone around them for their own personal gain, which is what
Yeah.
psychopaths do, and that's why they're in charge of companies. And those dudes are just people like that I've worked for a couple, like just God, everything was their way, micromanager, pieces of shit, whatever. And one time I was walking home from work and I was just like, why does this make you successful? And I got thinking, I'm like, actually, I think everything I say is right, and I've never been successful ever. So like, like if you put $1 million in my bank account, I'd be a monster right now. I'd be like, oh my God, see, it worked. I'm a genius because I got money out of it. So there's a point where there's that confirmation bias of like, I'm
Oh,
great, I succeeded, it's because I'm great. We don't
oh
think
my
about because it's
God.
lucky or whatever you've gotten in your life, it's because someone at some point gave it to you. Generally,
Mm,
right? Like you
mm,
worked hard, and that's all. But like, if you got into Harvard, someone had to read your application and let you into Harvard. Right now,
mm.
yeah, did you work hard? Of course, but at some point, someone had to do you a favor, and so the point is like you get lucky. You understand when you fail, you can't internalize it too much, and when you succeed, you can't internalize it too much. Like I say that with my friends with women all the time. Like when a girl says no to you, rarely is it anything about you, right? Like she's
Mm.
got a lot of things going on. She's maybe in a relationship. She's in a complicated thing. She's in love with somebody. Doesn't love her. Whatever. There's a bunch of stuff going on. But same thing the other way. When the girl says yes to you, has nothing to do with you either. So you were just standing there when
Mm.
she had to be sad and needed somebody to talk to at the right moment. Like you can't take it personally because you're too good or too bad with any of that kind of stuff. Like it's if you
Mhm.
succeed, you worked hard and you did some stuff, but no one works as hard as they think they do. Everybody
Mm.
thinks they work harder than they do. And it was a lot of luck and someone helping you out and giving you, and the problem too is that when someone gives us something long enough, we think we earned it,
Mm. Mhm. Totally.
So you have to
Yeah.
look at
And
like,
I'm definitely not anti-man. I think our conversation is going to turn into narcissism versus empaths, which, happen to line up, and, people who have dealt with narcissists, which basically, they don't care about what anybody thinks about them, and they will manipulate and steal and whatever to make their millions and not give a shit what anybody
right.
thinks about them. But then people who are empathic and are constantly looking at themselves of like, oh, where did I mess up? And am I doing anything wrong? And right, because we're experiencing the pain of their, terrible behavior. That's, whatever.
Well, and
But
it's
we actually should be the ones not questioning ourselves and
well,
standing
honestly,
up.
I really think, and this is where I just think as people, we need to organize ourselves differently. Like right now, we organize ourselves in groups of religion, family, interests, attractiveness. All the eights kind of hang out together. All the fives kind of hang out together. I think that's a new thing with Instagram. I don't think the hot cowboys only hung out with the other hot cowboys. I think they hung out with cowboys in the 1800s. I think. I don't know. I wasn't there, but I think we need to so there's two kinds of people for me. There's what I call pleasers, which we know what pleasers are. There's people, if you all my friends are pleasers. If you come to my house to watch football, and there's one open seat, you'll see three people sitting on the ground because no one wants to take the last seat from anybody else. If there's one piece of pizza left, no one will ever eat it. You know what I mean? And the other group of people are called measers. That's what they care about themselves first. So a measer walks in there, they rush to that last seat to make sure they have a place to sit. They'll take the last two pieces of pizza. They're only hungry for one, but they want to have a second one in case they're hungry later. That's a measer. It's not right or wrong. We got to stop saying it's bad or good. They just need to hang out with each other, right? Pleasers, when they hang out with each other, are great because we would never take advantage of each other because we're pleasers. And measers, they keep each other honest. They're the ones that divide the bill. Oh no, you had 2 glasses of wine, I only had one. You owe me $37, only 20. I mean, they keep each other honest when they're in a relationship. Two pleasers work great because they help each other, and they're not. Neither one of them wants the other one to suffer because of them. Two measers keep each other honest. They fight real good and fuck real hard, right? It works, right? Yeah. The problem is when a pleaser dates a measer. That's what a toxic relationship is because the pleaser keeps giving and the measer keeps taking. Right?
Yes.
And so the punchline of the joke is, you know what you call one measer and a big bunch of pleasers? A cult. That's what a cult is, right? Yeah. So we need to organize ourselves. We need to figure out as we move forward through human history here, because it used to be you only met 12 people, right? And now you meet everybody, and we have the ability, with online, we need to organize ourselves by preference, right? Because that's what we're talking about, even you and I have different preferences. You're talking about perfection or whatever. That's just, what's interesting is most of the things we really care about in our lives are just our parents' preferences.
Yes.
And the problem, a preference in one generation goes from a preference to a belief system, because you tell your little kid, hey, good boys and girls make their bed in the morning. And so you grow up, that's just what your mom cared about. Your mom, it's not right or wrong. You don't have to make your bed. No one gives a shit. It doesn't matter. Right. Yeah. But in your head, you're like, oh, I got to make my bed or I'm bad. And then you grow up and you have a partner who doesn't make their bed. And you're like, oh, you're a bad person. Because no, that's just what your mom cared about. Right. It's like,
mom won't love me anymore if I don't do this way.
Yeah. It's like picking up sticks before you mow the yard. My mom always made me pick up the sticks for them. You don't have to pick up sticks. Your lawnmower can mow over all the goddamn sticks. And I know that because I've mowed over a fucking stick my whole life, because I've never picked one up. Right. A lot of me is trying to prove shit. But also too, your parents, when you're 8, they don't want you to go outside because you're annoying them. That's why they make you go pick up sticks and sweep the garage. You don't need to do any of that shit. That's just because, I know that because you don't give anything important to an 8-year-old. You're not going to have them change the brakes on the car. They're 8. So you give them shit that doesn't matter, but they grow up.
My mom's mom used to make them paint rocks at their cabin.
Right. And
paint
so
rock
that's
on the way down to the lake.
Yeah. So that's your parents, but you don't know that when you're 8, because your parents can't give you the explanation of why they need. So then you grow up thinking, oh, you need to pick up all the sticks. My girlfriend was like, no, the sticks will fuck up the lawnmower. I'm like, no, they won't. She's like, no, my mom said they would. I go, well, either your mom was lying to you or her mom lied to her to get her out of the house. And she truly believes you have to pick up the sticks, but you don't, and that a lot. So that's where I think, even like murder is a preference. Like everybody thinks you should be able to kill people in a different situation. Some people think war is cool. Some people think, hey, we should have killed Hitler. Some people think you'd be able to kill someone if they molested your kid. Some people think you should be able to kill somebody if they walk in your garage. It's all different. You know what I mean? There's the only one I can't get away from is rape. There's no preference for that. But other than that, everything's a preference, right? It's just some people like it this way, some people like that way. And just so, wearing a hat inside is not good or bad.
Yeah.
But some people somewhere like, oh, don't wear a hat inside. That's wrong. Okay. And then a whole community of people decided that was somehow evil. I love it. It's just dumb.
I probably should have been a stand-up comic. Sometimes I think about it. I tried it one time in Australia a couple times. Yeah. But the reason that I love it is because you guys are also forced to have to look at patterns and how people behave and why they behave the way that they do. And obviously we're always going to be breaking down ourselves and, understanding why we're wired the way that we are too. But yeah, it just all comes down to that. It's just like understanding yourself and your wiring, and then looking for hacks to get where you want to go, and doing the opposite, and getting out of your comfort zone, and
Well, and what's
getting
great is
everything you want.
we need both too, right? Like if you look at my theory on why America is a great place is because we're 50-50. It's the arguing that makes us great. Had those hillbillies in Michigan not try to kidnap the governor about masks, we'd still be wearing masks right now. Like we need both people, and I think we obviously needed to do things with the pandemic or whatever, but like, but it's the middle ground. So give me an example. So my growing up my whole life, my dad is a very aggressive, angry driver. So like every time anyone's in the left lane, not moving over, and when he's behind him, this son of a bitch, and he's yelling at him. So my whole life, I was in the back seat thinking these people are evil, asshole pieces of shit. They're in front of us, right?
Yep.
My whole
because dad knows. Yep.
So this happened 2 years ago. So 2 years ago, I blew up my car engine driving to Vegas in Barstow, driving like an idiot, driving real fast. I just blew up the engine. So we got it fixed. And my buddy Johnny drove me to pick it up in Barstow. It's a 2-hour drive. And he drove 60 miles an hour in the left lane the whole time. And I'm losing my mind. But I wanted to get to why he was doing that. So I asked him what's going on. Well, it turns out his dad, when he was a young man, was driving through Atlanta and was in the right lane and had to exit when he didn't want to because traffic was real heavy. And it was one of those exits where he couldn't get back on for like 30 miles. It like cost him like 3 hours to take this exit. So he was afraid of that. So his whole life, he just drove in the left lane, and then either justified to Johnny or because he really believed it, he would say, oh no, you always stay in the left lane. That way you don't get on the wrong exit. You always stay in the left lane. And then all the people behind him honking at him and tailgating him, they were asshole rule breakers. They're breaking the law. They're trying to, I'm going the speed limit. These people are evil, right? So while my dad's honking at Johnny's dad's going, you tailgating piece of shit. And my dad's like, you get out of the left lane. Well, here's what's crazy is we need both. If everyone drove like me, we'd all die in car wrecks. If everybody drove like Johnny, it'd take us 9 hours to get to Vegas. You need people pushing the pack, and you need both people. Every time a country is going 80-20, the 80 tries to kill the 20. 50-50 is how we protect everybody. It's the genius of the whole system, I think.
I love that. I think that's amazing. And like, yeah, something that if everybody could appreciate that and the differences and understand, everybody's wired a different way that has them fully believe whatever they believe and do whatever they're doing.
Right. And that all came from their teaching.
Agreement. Yeah.
They learn. I mean, not to get too spiritual or whatever, but like, I truly think the universe or God or whatever is telling me to do stuff. Like when I'm on the right path, things go well. When I'm on the wrong path, things go badly until I get back on the right path. And so I was talking to a buddy of mine about that. And he was like, oh yeah, my friend, he did this and this and this. And it's so sad. And I go, no, he got a different lesson. God told him different stuff than he told you. So he's not wrong and you're not wrong. We were just told different because, you can't all be Tiny Tim in the play. Somebody's got to be Scrooge or the play sucks. Right. I mean, like we all have our role to play. And I've always said if God didn't want Hitler to be Hitler, he made him a better painter. You know what I mean? For whatever reason, he needed him to be that guy to teach us whatever he needed to teach us as a society or whatever. You know what I mean? Like I think we've learned a lot because of World War II, and so anyway, so I just think that there's not a lot of right and wrong. They're just different. And we have to understand where people are coming from and their, belief system rather than thinking this person's evil because they wear a hat inside. It's just
Chris Bowers for president. You got my vote. Honestly, I mean, that's the mindset that would really, move the needle.
Here's if I was president, here's the other thing I would propose for taxes. Ready?
Yes.
When you pay your federal income tax, there's a Scantron bubble sheet on the back, and you just fill in the bubbles where you want your money to go. I think we're even enough that enough people would pick the NEA and the arts, and some people pick the Army and whatever, Planned Parenthood or whatever you're for or against. And so when then either side, like, I don't want my money going to airplane or, bombers. Well, yours didn't, hippie. Yours went to Planned Parenthood and the NEA. And then some, I don't want my money going to Planned. No, yours didn't go to Planned Parenthood. Yours went to the Army, man. Like, I think it would be 50-50, and then it would take away all of our arguments. Also, I would
even school taxes too. Like if you don't have kids, it'd be like, I don't want my money to go to school.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Fill in the bubble. You don't have kids, but
then everybody who did care about it might pay for them.
And I'm saying, I think there's enough people on both sides that everything would get paid for. I don't think it would change our budget at all. It would just take away the argument of people being angry.
That would be really interesting to study if that was fact.
I'd also make everything tax deductible. Every dollar you spend. So if you make $100,000 and you spend $100,000, good job. You help the economy. You don't owe us anything. But if you made 100 grand and
that.
only spent 50, well, you get made 50 too much. Give us half that.
Interesting.
So people couldn't just park wealth at the top. You had to spend all that money and keep it in the economy for you not to pay taxes. That's what I would do.
I think that's smart. Any other things like that you want to like?
What are the other ones? I think. Well, I would also have a max. I'd also have a maximum wage. I would have a $100 million a year, and the first time you do that, if you make, we'd have another $100 million, whatever the number is. Let's say it's $10 million a year, and then there's a $100 million trust fund. So if you're MC Hammer and you make $100 million one year, we put that in a fund for you forever, the rest of your life. But then once you make 10 million a year, that's all you need. There's not much difference in buying power between 10 million and 20 million, right? At some point, and people are like, well, people wouldn't work. Well, the NBA people still work, and they have a maximum wage. You know, LeBron James plays every time, even though he still has a max contract, because then there's the, you know, because I think a lot of it's I call dick measuring. It's just I made this much, I made that much. It's like, no, you don't need to make that much money, man. But you know, maybe I'm a socialist. I don't know.
I love it.
I think there's some middle ground. We can figure it out.
I love it. Chris, thank you so much. What's one final thing you'd like to leave people with today?
I think the thing, well, I'll give you this quote and then I'll say the last thing. So my buddy Logan was always kind of an anxious dude. And one day I was like, dude, you just gotta chill out. Tell your brain there's no bear. There's nothing wrong. You're fine. And he was like, my brain doesn't have that power. It can't just make itself happy or not anxious. It doesn't have that power. I said, okay. Again, I talk about football. We watch football a lot. And he's a huge Green Bay Packers fan. So I go, when you come to my house to watch the Packers game, what do you do during the fourth quarter? He goes, I stand up. I go, why? He goes, because if I sit down, they lose. Okay. So you're telling me your brain thinks it controls the Green Bay Packers, but not your own happiness, not your own anxiety? Like, I think how many times do we do that? I don't want to jinx it. Knock on. Okay. You really think telling someone you tried out for something is going to keep you from getting that thing and you're going to jinx it?
Right.
Your brain thinks it controls the external when all your brain controls is the internal. And that's a logic problem I caught my brain in years ago that has helped me be who I am, which is I know, just like, you know, I knew anytime I wanted to lose weight, I could. Because I've done it. I've starved myself. I don't want to do it starving anymore. I figured out a new way to do it. But the reason I never felt bad about myself fat is because I knew if I really needed to turn it on, in 4 months, I could lose 80 pounds if I had to, you know? And so, but I'm not a superhero. So if I can control my brain, like, okay, let's get rid of the anxiety. Let's get rid of, you know, the thing you talk about with hate. I'm going to take that and work with it. And that was a great thing to think about. Like, why am I so worried about people not liking me? And then that's probably causing what I fear. Like, if I just fucking didn't give a fuck whether they liked me or not, they would, you know?
That's right. 100%.
And so, you know, but the idea that you can change your brain and think about things in a different way and that you're not stuck with who you are. Like, that's what I don't like about, you know, whether it's trauma or I wrote a TV pilot, but the point is, again, there's no good or bad. It's just the banks of the river. And the banks of the river help you go where you're supposed to go. And every time, like I said, if something's going wrong, you're hitting the bank of the river. Some people they won't stop. No, I'm doing, it's like, no, that's not where the river goes, man. Sorry, you're not gonna be a professional singer. That's not how this works. River's that way. Right?
Yes.
And you need banks or you end up in a circle. If you don't have a bank, you just go like, that's where trust fund kids don't have any consequences. They whatever. So you need that bank to steer you where you're supposed to go. Some people are so upset there is a bank, they just lay on the beach and beach themselves and like, I can't go on. It's too much trauma. But no, look, man, all the trauma happened to you. You know, I mean, eventually I might have to pitch this to Dr. Dre. And the point is I want to say, guys, without racist cops, we wouldn't have NWA. You needed those guys. You can't hate them because their bank of the river brought them to you. And the thing you should feel bad for them about is that imagine if your entire destiny was to be a dickhead in a better person's life and their story to get them to where they needed to go. Right. But it's all this stuff happens to us. But that being said, it's your mindset. You can get out of any kind of mindset you want. I mean, I think that's probably what you're doing with hypnosis is you're subconsciously helping them break those, you know, habits and ideas. And I can't, nope, that's not how it works because I did it once or 3 times and it didn't work that way. Now that's the way it's always going to be. No, you can always change. So that's the empowerment I try to give to people is like, you can be whoever you want to be. You don't have to be anything. It's who you choose to be and the steps you take and that kind of stuff. So that's, I guess, what I would leave people with is just change. Yeah. And
I love that.
And if I can do it, anybody can do it. Cause again, I'm not a superhero. I'm just a regular dude.
Totally. Yeah. I love that. It's just the belief that you can is what I hear,
Yeah.
And I think that's like the whole testament is just like anything is possible. And it's just understanding that like your brain is the only thing getting in the way. And we have all the tools and, stuff to get your brain to go in the direction that's going to get you where you want to go. So it's just like, know what you want, recognize if the way you've been, previously getting what you want isn't working anymore, right? Evaluate what needs to change. And then pivot and get back on.
That's my favorite quote, actually, is from, there's a movie called How Do You Know? It was like a Jack Nicholson, Reese Witherspoon, just a rom-com, dumb rom-com. But there's a moment where Reese Witherspoon's super type A, and she goes to a psychiatrist. It's Tony Shalhoub, who's Monk and now on Mrs. Maisel, the dad. And she goes, "Can you sum up the key to happiness in one sentence?" And he goes, "Yeah. Figure out what you want, learn how to ask for that." And that's really how I've kind of lived my life since I heard it. Isn't that great? Because most people don't know what they want
so much. That's it.
And the people that know what they want don't know how to ask for it. Like, figure out what you want, learn how to ask for that, and you'll be happy.
On that note, there's nothing else that can be said. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you. How can people find you? Either to see from your stand-up or get empowered by your messages?
If you go to @Bowers Comedy on Instagram, and thinks that's my Snapchat as well. Chris Bowers on Facebook. I don't do a lot of. I have a Patreon @Bowers Comedy. It's $8 a month. I have 12 followers. I'm like Jesus, I guess. But it's a Honda Civic payment. But if you want to follow my Patreon, that's where I do most of my social media stuff. And then, but I do post all my shows and things. Like if you're in LA, I've got a show Thursday at the Mrs. Robinson's in Toluca Lake, starting at 8:00. It's me and Jamie Kennedy and a bunch of friends. It's gonna be fun. We're doing that monthly. If you want to talk about my speaking, if you'd like me to come speak at your school, I have a website, bowerssuccess.com. So it's BOWERSUCCESS. So we put the S from Bowers and success as one S.com. Check that out. I'm actually updating that website this week. So look for that. But I'll have the anxiety speech up there and that kind of stuff. But just follow me around. I also do a show called the Social Distancing Social Club, which is sdscshow.com, which is, we do it once a month. It's me, Ben Glebe, Jodie Sweetin from Full House, and our producer Rachel. We started that during the pandemic. The first day of the pandemic, we started this show, and it kind of turned into a thing. We did almost 400 episodes during the pandemic. Now we do it once a month with all of our friends. We made friends all over the world. It was really cool. I've got friends in Australia and England and, all over the United States. So that was cool. So just Chris Bowers everywhere. There's like 3 of us. There's an actor, Chris Bowers. There's a blogger, and then there's me. So,
Awesome. We'll look for the comic and the anxiety guy. And thanks so much. I really appreciate it. And like I've said to you before, I just appreciate the aligned missions of inspiring people and knowing anything is possible, and walking the walk, rewiring your brain to get any results, and letting people know they can have that too. So
I appreciate that. And that hate thing really helped me. I'm going to take a lot from this too. So I appreciate that.
That's amazing.
That in my brain.
Good. Take it, run with it. Hope it helps other people as well. It's a real thing. And then we'll know why we're watching our text messages every second, waiting for the response.
Exactly.
Thanks everyone for listening. Thanks, Chris, for being here, and we'll see you next week.
All right. Thanks, guys.
If you are serious about taking action on your struggle with food, body, and weight, then this is for you. Go ahead and text the word hypnosis to 855-BE-ALIVE. That's 855-232-5483. Immediately after texting that number, you will get access to our free training that will tell you why you can't figure the food, body, and weight thing out, why you can't keep weight off even after you've been successful in the past, and how to actually overcome it, including a mini hypnosis session at the end. Don't miss out. Text the word hypnosis to 855-BE-ALIVE. That's 855-232-5483.